Hi everyone. Good day to you all because you are joining from different time zones. I'm Andal Balu from Kokota. We thank you for joining this Empowering Chocopreneurs Webinar series. Today we are going to hear from David about how to use the 82% of the cocoa pod that goes into the waste. But before that, I just want to take 5 minutes of your time and give us brief introduction about Cocotown because we saw a lot of new people have joined who are not Cocotown customers. So, Cocoton, we create and empower chocopreneurs around the world through equipment, education, exposure, and expertise. Our mission is pioneering craft chocolate technology, and our vision is to be the one-stop shop for chocopreneurs and foodpreneurs so they can create award-winning chocolates and gourmet foods. And we started our business in 1992 just as a specialty trading company. And then later on, we evolved into Cocotown. When we joined from the beginning, our objective is to help the farmers. So when it is a Cocotown, we wanted to make sure the cocoa farming is sustainable, our customers' businesses are sustainable, and the environmental sustainable. So we create a lot of educational opportunities to make the cocoa farmers create more wealth for themselves so they don't have to go hungry because we know all the farmers feed us but their children go hungry. That's not the right way. We have to give them enough money so they can stay in the farming because we can earn money in the city but we cannot eat the money. We need the farmers, so we have to remember that and encourage farmers. And then the customers businesses, we want to make sure the customers' businesses are thriving because they need to buy from the farmers at a higher price than what the bigger companies are willing to pay. And then the environment. We always make our machines with high quality stainless steel, and our machines are keep on working and working like the Energizer battery advertisement it used to be. So people who bought in 2005, 2006, they're still using or they have sold it and third person, fourth person is using it. And then our pillars are equipment, education, and exposure. Equipment, of course, we all know that we make machines from all the processes in different sizes. So you can start from 500 grams test batches or doing as a hobby all the way to growing into 90 kilos per batch for multinational companies. And then education. We started this education during the pandemic, empowering chocopreneurs webinars as a way of keeping our customers and anybody in the chocolate industry to learn new things because a lot of places with the lockdown they couldn't go out, so we wanted to give them the hope. So we started this, and with all your support we are into the fourth year now. We started in 2020, so we thank you for your support. And then exposure, we help our customers to exhibit in the international chocolate festivals. We subsidize the booth cost so they can come and mingle with the other international brands and find out what's going on, the latest trends. So those are the things we are doing. And then we have enabled and accelerated the craft bean to bar chocolate movement because our machines have the low initial investment and minimum footprint, and you just need the basic knowledge of skills to operate our machines. And then the farmers now they can sell the beans or they can add as semi-processed or fully processed products to add more value for their products. And then we also have the price transparency and we have consistent pricing structure. And we also offer financial structure, assistance. If you are outside the US and if you need some help, please contact us. Even within US, we have options for multiple payments. And then our machines are innovative. We have patents on our machines and we are continuously improving our machines. And the best part is when the new improvement comes, you don't have to throw the old machine and buy a new one. You just need to buy the new part and update it to the current level. So ours is compatible with the older machine. So you don't have to throw the machines out. And then the capacity building, like I told you before, from 500 grams all the way to 90 kilos. And then this is a quick timeline. We started in 1992, and then we introduced the wet grinders in 94, and then to 2006, people started buying the machines for making chocolate. And then 2007, we came up with the commercial grinders. And then you can see the whole thing that we are growing and we are striving to give you what you need. And we always complete with the Loka Samasta Sukhino Bhavantu. May all beings everywhere in the universe be happy and free, and may the thoughts, words, and actions of my own life contribute in some way to that happiness and freedom for all. We thank you, and we know you can reach us in different ways by the phone, WhatsApp, email, Skype, and Facebook and Instagram, LinkedIn. So we thank you for your time. Now I will turn it over to Teresa.
Thank you. Okay, welcome everyone. Good day. And I'm charged with some housekeeping. So I want to let you know that this session will be recorded and you'll receive a link to view the recording at a later date. When you get that email, it will have a survey link, and we'd love to hear from you. It helps us to know what type of webinars to bring to you and how we're doing and how we can do better. So we always like to improve. For this presentation today, if you have a question, please put it in the chat, and we will interrupt a little bit with some questions, and then we'll have a question and answer session at the end of the presentation. And now what I would like to do is just say hello to Chef David, and thank you so much for joining us today. And maybe you could tell us quickly before we start the presentation a little bit about where your journey or passion for cocoa began.
Yeah, I'm a chef by training, and I worked in hotels and then went to work for food manufacturers. And latterly, I worked for Divine Chocolate, the fair trade chocolate company, who were part owned by cocoa farmers in Ghana. So there was 88,000 cocoa farmers owned 40% of the chocolate company. So part of my role was to take journalists and customers to Ghana, take them into the forest, introduce them to cocoa farmers, and let them ask questions whether fair trade made a difference. And you could directly ask a farmer, and they could say yes or no, because you can't control a farmer. It'll tell you the truth. The farmers are usually quite straightforward and forthright people. That then became really interesting for me. I didn't need sales training courses because I've done Unilevers and Campbell's Soup, all those things. So I knew how to do my role. But what I didn't know enough about was chocolate. So I went on chocolate courses, and I went on some with Barry Callebaut, and I went on some with some award-winning chocolatiers here in the UK, and honed my chocolate skills because they're very different to my chefing skills. So I did that, and the more I did that, the more people asked me to speak or demonstrate. And Divine wanted me to spend more time selling to the retailers, and I wanted to spend more time helping farmers and demonstrating to people. So we parted ways after 11 years, and I'm doing this. I travel around, go to places like Haiti, Sao Tome, Ghana, Dominican Republic, and I've got plans to go much further afield. Whether I'm leading a chocolate safari to Bruges or Paris and talking about chocolate, or I'm actually going to Origin, all those things count. I go into schools, I go into universities, and I do food festival demonstrations. I work with several chocolate companies. I've done some work with, I can see we've got Neil from Madagascar on there. I've done some work with Neil. I've done some work with Nelson, who's one of the farmers that we've got on today. I've done a little bit with Luca Chocolates, done some with Guitard and Divine. So I've done bits of everything, and I'm hopefully the link between a chef, a farmer, and a chocolate company.
Wow, wonderful. Well, thank you. Thank you for being an ambassador. All right, with that, I will turn the presentation over to you, and I will jump in, do my part, share screen.
Perfect. This is basically taking us on the journey of redeeming the 82%. That will become evident as we move on what that actually means. Next slide, please. What I'm going to try and do is explore the significance of cocoa as a culinary innovation. Chocolate's there, so let's take confectionery done. Confectionery isn't something we need, it's something we desire. It's not necessary, we can live without it, but it's a lovely pleasure, so why should we? So I'm not trying to stop us eating chocolate. I want us to carry on. Chocolate does make the world go round, but I want to use cocoa as a regenerative agricultural resource rather than just a commodity. So that sets the stage for what I want to do. I want to turn waste to wonder, or waste to taste, and then talk about maybe some strategies for doing that and making it successful in each origin. And next slide, please. So who am I? And we'll go straight on to the next slide, if we can. This is just a quick brag and saying, who am I to be able to talk about this? So this gives you my credentials. I won't linger on it. You can see some of the awards. I'm export champion. I'm a disciple of Escoffier. So that gives me a level of respect within the chefing world, that when I went to Ghana just before Christmas, I was able to ring their only celebrity chef up and say, hi, I'm in Accra, can I nip and see you? And if you think whether you could do that with Gordon Ramsay, or you could do that with, sometimes you can't, unless you're a disciple of Escoffier and things like that. So that's why I mentioned that. It gives me access, and being an export champion gives me access to the British Embassy in the countries that I visit. So not last year, the year before, Nelson, who's online, I took him to meet the British ambassador at the embassy in Accra, and and he got his card, and the guy said, call me if you need anything. And that's difficult for a cocoa farmer to get. So sometimes I offer access in other areas that might be difficult to get without me. Next slide, please. So what are we doing? We're looking to explore this. I hope it's a transformative journey of taking cocoa pods that are currently discarded and thrown away. Also talking about culinary competition, a recipe book, and then commercialization both locally in the community and maybe further afield and wider than that. Yes, please. Thank you. And in doing these things, we should hit 3 of the development goals for the United Nations. It's poverty alleviation. We offer gender equality. And that's when you look, certainly my experience in Ghana with the amount of women who are in cocoa is increasing. And this particular way of cooking, I'm strange in Ghana because men don't cook, women cook. So I spend time with the women cooking often. The guys are okay, they don't mind a chef, but it's not really, men don't cook as much as they do in Europe or North America. And then it's responsible consumption and production, because we're looking at products that would have been wasted and potentially caused a problem locally and globally, and trying to offer that as a solution and a source of income. So I don't know if everyone's aware, but to generate 1 ton of cocoa beans, we create 10 tons of cocoa waste. Now, most governments offer a solution, and they'll say, okay, we need to increase productivity, so we'll give you these super duper genetically modified seeds that will produce more cocoa, and you'll be able to grow 20%, 30%, whatever, more cocoa on your farm, and that will give you more income. The problem is you've got 20 or 30 or 40% more waste. And what we aren't doing is offering solutions to deal with all that waste. If you leave the waste there, it's difficult to walk on because the pods go quite hard. And once you've got 10 tons of it, if you grow a ton of cocoa, then that's significant piles. And over the years, they mount up because it's 10 tons a year for a small farm. And then they encourage bacteria. And some of those bacteria can cause black pod. And that will give you a 30% reduction in yields the following year. So you not only, you get this short-term increase, and then the bacteria and molds create another issue. So ideally, we need to take the waste off the farm, do something with it, and then if you're going to make it into fertilizer and other things, take it back, but take it back in a managed way rather than it just sitting there. I'd like the next slide, please. So if we recycle all the cocoa waste, it would be equivalent to planting 3.5 billion trees, which is a huge contribution towards reforestation. And if we're not planting it as a monocrop, if we're planting it along with other things, which most people do, then it's a really, really good solution to reforestation, especially when we look at some of the European legislation coming through. Yes, please. This is a diagram of the cocoa pod showing you the different parts, so you can see where the 82% comes from. So 82% of a cocoa pod is currently discarded in the main. There are a few things happening, but generally the beans only make up 18%. 1% of that is the husk around the bean. Now, Nestle and Cargill have a project here in the UK where they buy beans, they take their 1% waste off when they've winnowed it, and then they're making low energy, low carbon fertilizer pellets to grow wheat. That's great, but so that means they've got zero waste, and the 82% is left on the farm with the farmer. And to me, that doesn't seem fair. You know, if we had to buy the whole pod, we absolutely wouldn't throw 82% away. I'm guarantee that that wouldn't happen. So I'm trying to do something along to get us closer to throwing a lot less of that 82% away. So you can see what we get, and then that's fine. And we're on to creative solutions. I would have caught up, it would have been okay. This is showing one thing, which is cocoa tea. So we can look at things, we don't need to use the beans. In Ghana, there's a particular problem because the government own all the beans. You have to sell them through the government. So for this project, I've looked mainly at everything that's not a bean. So, because the beans you've got a market for, the beans you can sell, and if I dive into that, I'm going to create competition and difficulties for myself, arguments and obstructions. So I'm saying, okay, let's look at this waste that nobody wants and see if we can solve that. And there might be other things that come out of that that would relate to beans and husks, etc. But I'm trying to focus on the stuff that nobody else wants, that's rotting. Yes, please. So if we look at the cocoa pod as a whole, the easiest thing we can do is we can use it as a single-use drinks holder. Nobody's surprised to see a coconut with a straw in it and some rum or some a cocktail, or a pineapple cut open and filled with food and done that way. But I don't see cocoa pods being used by chefs and hospitality in the same way. When I was in Sao Tome, the chefs took lobster, put it inside an empty fresh cocoa pod, tied it with twine, and then threw it into the open flame and steamed it that way. And lobster tail works really well. You can do cocktails. We did some cocktails in Ghana 2 years ago with Nelson, might tell you they were really lovely. And we made some drinks. You can even use the pod as a cocktail shaker when you're doing that, if you're careful the way you open it. You can make cocoa flour by drying and then pulverizing. A lot of work, and you need a chipper at the very least to bash it down, because the pods are quite tough, as I've got a couple here. So they're not easy to break down. So when you're going to pulverize them, you do need some machinery to do that. I wouldn't recommend using 100% cocoa flour. I would say maybe do 50-50 with your regular flour. Cocoa flour is gluten-free, so it hits all the celiac buttons. But if you overdo it, it absorbs more water when you're cooking, so it changes the structure of your recipe. So I think it should be a supplement. In my view, certainly in my dishes it will be, rather than a total replacement. You can do twice cooked cocoa chips. So you can see the thing that's on the right-hand side of your screen. That's a peeled cocoa pod. So the beans have come out. We've taken the outside off like you would with a squash, cut into chips, and then you boil those for 10 minutes until they're slightly soft, drain them, and then deep fry them in hot oil, and then season them: garlic, salt, chili powder, a little pepper, and you can season those up as a bar snack. And I taught a bar owner in Accra just before December, and she to go and show me how to do that. And I showed her, she made them, and I let her make them totally. So rather than me doing it for her, I explained and she did that, and then served them to her customers that night in the bar. And every single piece was eaten up. The customers were amazed at how great they tasted, and they said, "We didn't realise you could eat a cocoa pod." You can also take it and put it into stews and soups as a bulker and as a thickener. So a little bit like okra creates a slime when it goes into water. Cocoa pods do as well when they're chopped, the pulp. So that will thicken. It's a really rich source of pectin. So fabulous for making syrups, gels, jams, or jellies for our friends over the pond. And you can then make things like shito, which is a really popular, terrible name, amazing product. Anybody in Nigeria, Ghana, they love that. It's their version of a chili relish. If you go to Dominican Republic, it's sofrito. If you Jamaica, call it green. There's lots of cilantro or coriander in it, but it's the same thing. You use it on the side of meats and fish and vegetables and rice, and it'll make everything tastier because of its salt and chili, and they like heat. And then the final one is making soap, and black soap. You can burn the pods, you set them on fire. And if you're burning the pods, you want to be boiling water or doing something, cooking your twice fried pulp. So you're not wasting the heat, you're using it to do that. And then you take the ash, put it into water, the potash separates out, take the potash off, mix it with an oil. You could mix it with cocoa butter, but remember in Ghana, that's the government's for now. So you could use palm oil, you could use shea oil. There's lots of options, but you need an oil to go with the potash. And basically, with a little bit of moulding, but you could hand mould as well. You've got soap that you can sell locally and do other things with. Yes, please. You can make drinks. So I've got an award-winning beer. You might see the beer in the middle there in the glass that won the best beer. Sorry, the best alcoholic drink made with cocoa, and that was made with some Colombian cocoa nibs. And it doesn't have chocolate syrup in it, it has cocoa. And then I also made a cocoa liqueur, or I helped a distiller make a cocoa liqueur. They sell these, the brewer and the distiller, not me. So I'm not trying to flog my products here. Somebody else does that, and it's theirs, not mine. You can also make chocolate bitters. And for chocolate bitters, you can use, quite often, farmers are given new saplings and told to cut down their old trees and dig them out. You can use the roots and the leaves to make chocolate bitter, cocoa bitters. And cocoa bitters can be used by chefs, mixologists, and or just herbalists, people who are interested in natural remedies. But there are some really good recipes for those. You can make cocoa vinegar, and vinegar is really useful for cleaning, for washing clothes. You make clothes whiter by putting a drop of vinegar in there. You can then all its culinary uses. And if you look at fermentation methods, if you look at the massive jump we have in pickled and fermented cabbage, kimchi, and it just goes on and on. Very, very trendy just now, and quite expensive. I went to see Chef Mike, who runs the restaurant in Accra that's owned by the president's daughter, so a very posh restaurant, quite expensive, and showed him this, and he was absolutely amazed at this vinegar, how good it was. And he said, well, where's that been made? And I said, that's been made by a lady in 9 hours north of here. And he's now taking his TV crew to meet this lady to watch her making vinegar. And this is there's something like 2 million litres of mucilage, of sweatings that come every harvest that generally run into the rainforest floor. And when they run into the rainforest floor, it's at such a concentrate, they kill the natural chemistry of the forest because it's too strong. It needs to be spread and more gentle than that. So us saving it is better for the forest floor as well as just letting it run out to do that. You can make cocoa juice, and we've all seen Koa and other companies like that collecting juice. That's great. I commend what they do because they're paying a farmer immediately for the bit they take. However, they then take that and it goes to Switzerland and it's done stuff. And the model they have, which is a beautiful big stainless steel unit they take into the forest, is almost impossible for a farmer to copy and say, how can I make juice like that? So my methods that I've written allow them to do it for no money. And we did this last year with Nelson. Again, you could have, because there's somebody there that's tasted the juice that we made and saw how easy it was to make. Or you can start to scale up a little bit. And this last time I took a 2-pound salad spinner. So you know the things you'd have at home that you put your lettuce in and spin round to dry after you washed it. That will work with cocoa beans to spin off the mucilage and sweating. Or you can get really clever and buy stainless steel industrial lettuce spinners that the sandwich makers use, the sandwich manufacturers, and you can spend £40,000 on European or American grade food businesses and do it that way. But you can start at nothing. And then you try and sell that. And if you can sell it to your neighbour, brilliant. If you can't sell it, then you can use that to go to vinegar. And it's still at no cost because the juice becomes vinegar as the fermentation process develops. Or if you want to pasteurize it and have something that will last 3 months, most people, it's out of their reach to have a UHT pasteurization unit. That's what Koa are doing and the big guys. And it lasts, or they'll freeze it and then send it frozen and do that. Again, that most farmers don't have access to that. So what I'm suggesting is a sous vide circulator would allow you to do low temperature pasteurization, and it would take 6 hours, and you've got pasteurized that will be good for 3 months. And you need to sell it in 3 months anyway. So there are solutions, and all these solutions are aimed at the farmer first, but they're all scalable if you want to do it at scale. And yes, please. And I encourage you to do that in collaboration. I had a meeting this time with the sports nutritionist for the Black All Stars, the Ghanaian football team, because at half time, you might not believe this, but they drink milk. Now, I can't think of anything worse to drink at half time than milk because it's not good for your throat and or breathing because it's sticky, really. So they do that. And I'm saying, well, wouldn't it be better if you had cocoa juice? And cocoa juice is sugar-free. It rehydrates and rehydrolytes. It can be nice and chilled, and it will be easier to drink and then run after you've had some of that to drink. I also had a meet, and she agrees, but there's still a challenge because footballers in Ghana and many other countries think that milk builds bones and strength, so it's a really good thing to do at halftime. So there's a bit of a challenge, but we're up for trying to work through that challenge. Also, I had a meeting with CRIG, which is the government research agency for cocoa bod, and we talked about some of these things along with vinegar and cocoa juice, and they were really in agreement. They hadn't realised, they hadn't put the numbers together to realise that 82% was thrown away. So there were some things that we did there that were beneficial. I was talking to catering colleges, hospitality colleges, schools, tourism authorities to actually create tours onto cocoa farms to increase income and then have a space to sell. Conference organisers, I was amazed to see that in the land of cocoa, I was at Chocoa last week in Amsterdam, and there was a tea and coffee stand, but there wasn't a hot chocolate being served at a chocolate conference. I'm in Ghana and they'll serve tea and coffee at conferences, and I'm amazed that they're not serving hot chocolate. Or cold pressed chocolate cocoa. You can have it cold, you don't need it hot. Tours, cruises, hotels, bars, restaurants, and that's Chef Mike, their celebrity chef. You can see that at the bottom of the screen. So it can't be done on its own because you need all these players to bring the products and the dishes to life. So I spent 3 days with Chef Mike and his team talking them through some of the ways they could use these lost parts of cocoa and some of the ways they could use regular cocoa as well and chocolate. But that was part of it. Yes, please. We tried to create a street food competition, and this is really one to show people what I've worked out on things we can do and or what I've discovered, because some of the things I've spotted, like Mercedes, and I've forgotten her surname now, from Peru, has got a great book out, and that's where I pinch the twice fried pulp chips, but I've slightly changed, doing it a different way. But the idea certainly came from her, and tried to get the youth involved with a small prize and encourage them to look at cocoa instead of just thinking, well, that goes in the bin. Say, no, what can you do with it? Here's some examples. And we might create some entrepreneurs and new street food. Ghana, Nigeria, lots of Haiti, they're good at street food. Most of their food is sold that way. So just being innovative and using some of these things is, and everyone I spoke to, and I spoke to hundreds of people last year and the year before, were amazed. But once they embraced the idea that it could be food, and it just now it's free, but I'm not proposing it be free because I want the farmer to sell it to these people, not to give it away. Otherwise, how does the farmer make an income? And then we'll finish off my last slide, I think. Yeah, this is where we go to questions, and I'm happy to answer any questions. I think there's a couple coming there, but if anybody wants to chat up, there'll be a copy of this recording, I know, on the website later anyway. But please feel free to contact me if you want to chat further. But I'll answer any questions now.